You're listening to the Talkative Toastmaster podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Surplus. In this podcast, we explore how Toastmasters can help you to polish your public speaking skills, communicate with confidence, and amplify your authenticity. You'll hear from my fellow Toastmasters and I how this global organisation has impacted our lives for the better and how it could impact yours. Now, let's get talkative. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 5 of the Talkative Toastmaster podcast. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce my very first guest to the show, a Toastmaster and club member, Melissa Chong. I met Melissa a couple of years ago when I joined Mount Gravatt Toastmasters, and Melissa has been a Toastmaster for 5 of the last 10 years at Mount Gravatt. And she's currently working through the Presentation Mastery Pathway, which is part of the Toastmasters International Education Program. Melissa, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me, Mel.
Awesome. Now, Toastmasters has been part of your life for quite some time. Could we perhaps start by talking about why you decided to join Toastmasters?
Yep, absolutely. So my journey started off when I decided to go into research. And I knew from that moment that I would need to be able to stand up in front of a crowd, potentially, and talk about my research. And I knew that I wasn't confident in doing that. So back when I was doing a little bit of training work, I remember one of my mentors had said, if you want to get better at public speaking, find a Toastmasters Club. And at that stage, I really had no idea what it was. It just sounded like something that would help me speak better. So I started looking up Toastmasters at that point, and I came across quite a number of clubs around my area. And I found that a lot of the clubs had a theme or an employee group that was associated with it. And funnily enough, even though I don't live near Mount Gravatt, the only one that I could find that was unaffiliated was the Mount Gravatt Toastmasters Club. So I checked out their website and I found the venue and I just literally rocked up. And I had no idea what I was coming to. I came into a small room filled with people. They were super energized, super excited about what they were doing. And I got a chance to see my first meeting, which was really exciting. A whole heap of people were there for the same reason. They basically would take turns getting up and speaking, and everyone would clap right at the end. And I didn't know what it was about that night, but I thought, yep, this is for me. I'm going to come back. And it didn't take me long to basically sign up as a member, and we have meetings twice a month. So I just started coming to meetings. That was my start.
Great. And there's a number of points there that you mentioned. So particularly like-minded, energized people. Do you feel that there are different vibes in different clubs? Have you now since been and visited other clubs and noticed different vibes?
Funnily enough, I haven't had the urge to visit other clubs, but I have been to a lot of competitions, and you definitely get a vibe of, I'm sure there are different vibes in different clubs depending on who's in the club. I think it really changes the atmosphere. But I really liked Mount Gravatt because they are so warm and welcoming. And we had so many members that are really long term, like been there for decades, basically. And you were able to see that caliber, or you could see the trajectory that you could potentially follow if you continued to turn up and, apply yourself. So I think that's what really attracted me to come back. But in terms of the vibe, definitely everybody is there to improve themselves and help others improve. And you don't have to be amazing. I mean, that's the whole point of going, really. You're wanting to be amazing, but everybody was happy that, you were there, that you were wanting to better yourself, and it didn't matter where you were on that trajectory.
I think the patience and respect and support that people have for each other at certainly our club is fantastic. It's very, everyone feels very welcomed and embraced, I think, in terms of where they want to be and they're speaking to where they are and where they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's so supportive. And I think because they can remember when they first started and what it was like, it makes that extra bit of support more personal because they can see a little bit of themselves in the person that's in front of them. And they kind of know where they might benefit from where the next step would be.
For sure. So what do you most enjoy about being a member? There's obviously lots of benefits to being a Toastmaster, but what do you most enjoy about being a member?
It's a funny thing to say, but I don't think I've ever been to a meeting where I've regretted going. You'll hear people say, oh, I didn't really feel like going tonight. But once they turn up, I think just being in the group, and it can be quite comical sometimes in terms of some of the things that happen. And it's not like that we're laughing at each other. It's just laughing about the situation because people can come up with all sorts of things when they're a little bit put on the spot, or, they might be super creative and super intelligent, which makes it all the more hilarious. But each night is just really entertaining. If you've ever been to a meeting, you can see all the different roles that happen, and they're all designed to improve our ability to speak and be confident in getting up in front of people. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's a little bit like playing a game, really, where everyone has their different roles, but we all definitely have fun and learn along the way. So, yeah, I would say that there really hasn't been ever a meeting that I've gone, oh, gosh, that was a waste of time. It's exactly the opposite. You feel so grateful every time you leave a meeting because you've learnt so much, or you've been able to share in somebody else's, achievements.
I think you raise a good point. You're not only necessarily learning just about the techniques of speaking, but because people put so much research into their speeches, you can be learning about all manner of topics that you never in a million years would, one, think you would sit down to listen to or be interested in, but watching the way people deliver it as well, that's all the learning experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been and again, as you said, people come from all walks of life. So there is no one group of people, which is what I love about Mount Gravatt Toastmasters. As I said, there are the clubs that are perhaps centered around their workplace, and so they would have probably quite similar things to talk about. But our club is so eclectic, I think that is the word, where everybody is from every part of industry or healthcare or everywhere really, and there's also the retirees as well, so they have a different perspective on things, and we've been able to get some young people in the mix. So when you have such a diverse group of people coming together to achieve one thing, you can, as you say, learn so much about so many different aspects of life that you would never have really been exposed to.
It's great. That's one of the parts I enjoyed most too. So last year, you were voted by club members as Toastmaster of the Year, an award which recognises a consistent, solid contribution to the club. And I've seen your work firsthand in that. You do so much to make the club run smoothly. What did that achievement mean to you?
I really enjoyed that. I was chuffed to receive that award, actually, because I know how much effort I had put in during that year. And I think mainly it was because we had moved to the hybrid meetings that needed quite a fair bit of setup and organisation. So, getting all the equipment correct and making sure that people would be able to see and hear at the right times, it did take a little bit of preparation, but I learned so much just doing that in terms of technology and how sound works and how to adapt it with your computer and your setting and everything. So I really enjoyed all of that, but because it did take quite a lot of work, as you say, I did seem like I was everywhere a little bit. And I think because I had to be at the meetings to set up the equipment for it to happen, I was consistent, so I was there the whole year. And I didn't want it to be a year where I just focused on that. I still wanted to be able to achieve my goals in the pathway. So then I didn't make any excuses for myself. So if I had, and because I was Vice President Education, I do the agenda. If I had allocated myself to a speech, I made sure that I went and did it. So I think that was really much the key. It wasn't necessarily that I was going for that award, but I feel like just being consistent and having to be there at every meeting and then, also achieving in my pathways, it kind of landed myself to that award by the end of the year because of my consistent effort. But no, it was a nice way to end the year.
And I think a lot of people recognize the hybrid approach. So that was where during lockdowns and various stages of not being locked down and might have been being locked down or whatever was going on, the club was able to continue adapt and to serve our members, whether it was all online or some online, as you say, the hybrid approach. And I think we were one of the few clubs that continued to do that well beyond when it was needed. And I think it really helped to cater for just that whole weird period of our lives and kept the momentum going for people where it otherwise might have really, stalled the momentum, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. And we're moving into a world where the face-to-face isn't always the way that we meet anymore. So I think it was a really, a different kind of learning curve that everyone was able to experience as well in communication. And following on from that, I know that they were doing some competitions, with the hybrid method. And so you're watching these Toastmasters go into the national competitions and be able to deliver their speech in front of a camera. You could sense that there was an extra skill to that. It wasn't the same as if you're in front of a live audience. They had to really play to the camera. They had to make sure that, as they were standing in front of the camera, different parts would be seen at different times in terms of their perspective of what the audience were experiencing. So, I think it was just an opportunity for another skill to be developed there. And I do know that people were really appreciative, if they weren't feeling up to actually leaving the house because, they were sick or they'd had a really long day, they could still dial in and connect into the meeting. So it definitely served our club very well.
Yeah, I agree. And even continuing to foster that community spirit and that feeling of family, like it is at the meetings anyway, at a time when people were feeling pretty isolated and hemmed in the worst of the lockdown periods. So, I think it was great to see that we adapted well and to know that we can switch that on at any time. Where I guess we're also experienced in doing that now. If we need to switch it on, it's we've done so much of it, and you particularly have organised so much of that it's a much easier process now. So what's been one of the most valuable skills generally that you've learned? That was a particular skill set, the setting up of online and hybrid meetings. But what would you say, are there other sort of valuable skills that you've learned during your time as a member?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole premise of why people even think about coming to Toastmasters is the main goal. And I think once you've done a little bit and you start to get that confidence and then you start to use it in your workplace and home and all sorts of situations, it just builds on that confidence. So I think it probably took me about a good 2 years of meetings before I felt comfortable just getting up at work and speaking off the cuff. And I never experienced that before. And it was a really nice feeling to be able to not be nervous and just to get up. Other people would look at you and go, wow, that's such a cool skill, but that you've actually worked hard at it. You've done the hard yards where you've got to meetings, every fortnight, you've got up and you've spoken and you've got out of your comfort zone. And so to you, it's not a surprise, but to your workplace and to your friends, they're just looking at you like a new person. They're like, where did this come from? So I think it's that, building of the practice and the habit that you've built into yourself to actually hone your skills, and then you get to enjoy the fruits of it. So getting up and speaking doesn't need to be a scary thing. And, I know that from firsthand experience that certainly changed for me. As I said, probably took at least 2 years to get to that point, but, everyone's different. I think also to know that if you do have anything coming up and people go, hey, we need a speaker for this event, you don't suddenly go, don't pick me. You actually start to think, you know what, I've got the skills for this. I actually can do this while everybody else is still, nervous and things like that. So that's a nice, again, confidence booster to be able to say, I got this, I can do this. It's actually, not an abnormal thing for me to get up and speak. And I also think making friends, the friends that we've made along the years and knowing, where different people are at in their journey has been really rewarding. Celebrating other people's successes and just other skills that you wouldn't necessarily pick up elsewhere. So, for example, one of our new roles in the Toastmasters Club, which not every club has, is the guest greeter, for example. And I must admit, I can introduce myself and have small chat and things like that. But I can't say that it's my most comfortable thing to do all the time. But I think being the guest greeter has really opened that up to people who wouldn't normally be able to just get up and talk to somebody. Things like that, where different roles will train you in a certain area. They're also different things that they're a little bit different from just getting up and speaking in public.
Yeah, I think the nature of the rotating roster as well it ensures that each week or each meeting you're challenged in a different way. So prepared speeches is one thing, but then the impromptu sections like table topics or the warm-up or things like that. And a guest greeter, you don't even know if there's necessarily going to be guests there. So you may or may not be introducing someone. But yeah, I think each role provides an interesting little stretch of comfort zone every time you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you've got the executive roles as well. So that also opens you up to leadership opportunities, organizing a different part of the club is, and then you being like the go-to person for that area, whether it be membership or education or, even just setting up the club, being sergeant at arms and things like that.
I know you've been Vice President of Education, certainly a couple of years running. Have you done other roles in the exec?
Yeah, so I've done a Sergeant at Arms and also, I didn't officially do President, but the year that I was Vice President of Education, our President had to move just for family reasons. So I then had to step into that role because if the President isn't there, the VP steps in. So I did kind of do like a hybrid role for about 3 or 4 months, but I would say the VP is still, the busiest. I haven't actually done any of the other roles.
In doing that role of Vice President Education, so in creating the meeting agenda each week and making sure people are moving through their pathways, did that give you particular skills that you can use elsewhere? Because there's quite a lot of moving parts to that role. It's a huge role.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think just being organized, definitely you've got to be organized to be a VPE, and you've got to have your finger on a lot of pulses at the same time. So being able to multitask is important, and following where everybody is on the pathway and seeing, well, what's next for them and how can I help them achieve that next part. As you say, putting the agenda together. I know different places do different things, but I would say that the way that we've done it in the past has sort of allowed people to plan ahead, because you can see a good 3 or 4 meetings ahead of what's coming up. So that way people have time to prepare, especially if they need to do a speech. And I think, being organized, also mentoring others, it does make a difference if you've been a bit experienced before you do the VP role. And so then you're able to mentor, especially new people, because navigating that pathways isn't particularly easy at the start. They used to be a little bit easy before they had pathways. They would have books and you just literally work through the projects through a book. But now they've moved on to online, which is great. But it does take a little bit to get used to all the different pathways and where you're up to in projects. Getting people started and getting them online and navigating them through that first part brings out some of your mentoring skills as well.
And are you able to apply them in other areas of your life? Like,
absolutely,
just naturally do it now?
Yeah. There's especially when your workplace is somewhere where you do need to be organized and being in charge of lots of different people. I think it definitely helps you get those skills up.
And what about the skill set of evaluating and giving feedback in the way that we evaluate everything at Toastmasters? Do you find you naturally use those skills in other areas of your life now?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think is always difficult, especially if you work in a big organization with lots of people, but, even in a small team, sometimes you need to communicate and give feedback. And I think the thing that really teaches you when you're doing that role for a Toastmaster in your club is that you focus on being constructive. That's really the main part of it, to be telling them what they're doing correctly and then maybe giving them 1 or 2 pointers of improvement. And I think there's definitely a skill to that, because I have seen it done badly, as I'm sure some people, others have as well. And, if you're going to be working with somebody and you're going to be seeing them every day, it's really important to be able to give them constructive feedback that they're going to be able to build on and foster the relationship rather than damaging the relationship. So certainly being an evaluator of somebody's speech helps you hone that skill.
I also find I mentally evaluate people's presentations at work.
It's hard not to.
And every now and then I'll provide feedback. I think that's a matter of choosing the situation and how open they might be to receiving feedback outside the context of Toastmasters, because we all go there for the feedback. But certainly the times I've pointed out just little things, like, did you know that when you do X, this and this and this happens? Or sometimes that's never pointed out to people. So I think if it's done tastefully and subtly and respectfully, people appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really an opportunity, isn't it? Because I think this is one of the things that I've noticed when you've got people who at work who are presenting. Interestingly, they're so focused on what they're presenting, they're not really focused on their presentation and how they come across. And it can really make or break the presentation. But because they're not focused on that, bad habits will sneak in, whether they'll use lots of filler words, or whether there'll be lots of pauses and it won't flow correctly, or whether the way they're presenting it, is very distracting. Just all sorts of things that, as you say, you start to notice because you've done this at Toastmasters a fair bit. But as you say as well, it depends on how open they are to receiving that feedback as to whether that will land well. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, what would you say to people out there who might be thinking about going to a Toastmasters? They've heard about it. A mentor might have told them, made the suggestion like your mentor did, but they're mildly terrified about stepping into a club meeting. What would you say to them?
Oh, definitely give it a go. You will not regret it. I can't imagine life without Toastmasters now. I know that sounds very cliche, but I even got more of a confirmation of that when I went to a recent conference, and this gentleman of 93 years old got up and he spoke, and he was just so eloquent, and I got the opportunity to speak to him afterwards. And I don't know how it came out in the conversation, because this had nothing to do with Toastmasters, but he said, "Oh, I'm a Toastmaster." And I was just like, that makes so much sense. Like, he got up and he spoke off the cuff and he just held the room. And I just thought, wow, like that is worth investing in. So I would say to anyone who's even remotely thinking of it, just go to a club, check it out. There will be different clubs, different members in different clubs, and it might not be necessarily the one for you. But if you persist, like, there are just so many rewards. And as you sort of have mentioned along the way, that it's really a skill where it doesn't just help you in one area of your life. You think about how much you use communication and how much it impacts on how your life actually goes. It's such a need, such a basic need, like breathing air or drinking water. I mean, it's that sort of when you realize how much you use communication and how this can benefit you, it's really a necessity.
Well, short of sign language or telepathy, it's really what every time we open our mouth, we're public speaking, whether it's to one person or 100 or 500 people, it's speaking. I think even the term public speaking can perhaps distract people from what Toastmasters can actually teach. It's just communication skills, really.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Whether you're having a private conversation with your teenager or needing to speak to 100 people at a conference, you can definitely learn all those skills at Toastmasters.
And do you have any preferred roles? Are there any activities that you really love doing at Toastmasters, or that you're still, even after all this time, like,
a bit of both. So I quite like the prepared speeches, and maybe because you've had a chance to actually practice it and polish it, and you put a lot of effort into it, and then to be able to execute it is really quite satisfying. The thing that I am always scared of, and I think majority of us are, is table topics. And funnily enough, it's a little bit like, there's that word game, forgotten the name of it, but it's like that game where you can't say a certain word. And then it's funny, but when I first started Toastmasters and I was doing table topics, it would put you on the spot, and then you would mute. Nothing would come out. And it's like this game where you're so focused on not saying that word, you don't say anything. And over the years, definitely you start to improve and think, actually, there is a lot I can say here. A lot I can say that I won't mess up. And with table topics, you only have to speak for a minute. So I feel like now I'm past that stage of being scared not to say anything, but now I need to focus on, let's make it a little bit more structured, a little bit more polished. Yeah, so there's lots to work on in that space. But that is one of the ones that strikes fear, where everyone kind of turns away. Don't make eye contact.
Yeah, when they're looking around the room and deciding who to ask the question to. And even though you know it's coming each meeting and you could be asked, there's still that trepidation. But I think, again, it's just one of those.
It's part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, getting out of the comfort zone and just seeing how creative people can get with their questions.
Oh, absolutely.
And it just seems to be that sometimes you get onto a question that you can really get your teeth stuck into, and other times the first thought is, what is the next minute or 2 minutes going to entail here? I have no idea. I think table topics does seem to be one of those areas that is good. It's always going to stretch us. It's always going to make us feel that mildly bit uncomfortable. But I think it actually gets easier too. The more of them you do, and the more you just understand different structures of speeches, it at least gives you a framework to plug content into.
Yes, that's the next bit I need to master.
Yes. Now, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like people to know about Toastmasters or your experience with it?
I think like everything that we do, especially if we're trying to improve, really needs to be consistency in there, and you'll definitely get the benefits from that. Like I see some members who, in terms of priority, it's not as a big deal for them. They like coming and they like being part of the club, but to actually improve their speech is maybe perhaps a little bit lower on their priority compared to other things in their lives. And so they don't always come to every meeting. But I would argue that this is one of those things that if you are persistent and you are disciplined, is what I was trying to say, then you will definitely reap the rewards. So that's what I would encourage anyone who is a Toastmaster or is thinking of joining. Just if you decide to become a member, and we certainly say that as the pledge when we enroll new members, that you will be consistent and you will turn up to meetings regardless of how you're feeling. As I said, I've never regretted going to a meeting. In fact, it's always been the opposite. But I think part of it, of you being becoming that speaker that you're meant to be, is just being really consistent with turning up and contributing and improving yourself in the role that you've been allocated is really important.
I agree. And it's not dissimilar to fitness. It's exercising a muscle. And it's not even like it's that often. Twice a month in some clubs. I know some clubs meet more frequently, but twice a month in the case of Mount Gravatt Toastmasters. And so 2 hours a couple of times a month plus the preparation time is not a lot of time to get the benefits that come from doing that consistently over time, over a year or 2 or 3 or 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Slight Edge.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's a success book which talks about, the benefits that you reap when you are so consistent. And surprisingly, even as you say, it's only two times a month. It is enough. It is enough to get your growth in public speaking to go exponentially. And you be in a really different place after a short period of time.
And I think watching people who've been there for a few months, especially who are particularly nervous when they come through the front door, and there's a few I can think of, in the last year of people that have come through, and where they were and where they were 6 months later was chalk and cheese. And you can see that they're feeling more confident in themselves, and it just gives them skills to, whether it's apply for promotions or go for other jobs or extend themselves in their current jobs. You can just see that confidence and the spark they have when they get up and speak, which is, I love seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's one of the rewards.
Yeah, for sure. All righty. Well, if there's nothing else, I might wrap that up. But thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. You pointed out a lot of great points, particularly about turning up, just giving it a go and being consistent. I think that is a really important takeaway. It's like any skill. It's about doing things consistently. But again, what I love about Toastmasters is that you can apply the feedback you get every meeting the very next day. The next time you open your mouth, you can apply the feedback. So, yeah, I wish you all the best for 2024. And what sort of goals are you going for this year with Toastmasters, just to wrap up?
Thanks, Mel. So I'm up on level 4 of presentation mastery, and I've only got one more project to go. And I must admit, this particular one I've sort of been procrastinating a little bit because it is to do with interrupting speeches. So part of the project is I get up and I present a speech, and then I've got people in the audience be a bit disruptive throughout my speech and how I manage that. And I wanted to do a little bit of practice beforehand, but yeah, when life's busy, it's hard to fit that in. So I've been doing speeches, but they're not on the pathway. So that is definitely one I want to tick off.
Okay. Oh, well, finishing presentation mastery for 2024. I'm sure you'll make it happen.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mel, and all the best for 2024. And I look forward to watching you grow and seeing what your Toastmasters journey takes you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mel.
Thank you. If you're ready to unlock your potential, consider joining a Toastmasters club near you. Check out the Find a Club link on the Toastmasters International website at www.toastmasters.org. It's worth visiting a couple of different clubs as a guest to see which club best suits you. If you do take the leap and visit a meeting, I would absolutely love to hear your experience. Feel free to message me at talkativetoastmaster@gmail.com or tag me in the comments if you found this podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Thanks for listening to today's show. Head to talkativetoastmaster.com where you'll find the show notes for this and all other episodes, as well as links to some awesome Toastmasters resources. If you found value in today's content, I'd really appreciate if you could share it with friends and colleagues who may be interested, or leave a review on iTunes. This helps more people to find us. Until next time, remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Speech is power. Speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel. Have a great week.